Hi, I'm Calvin from Mad Catter and Lynx, and this is the RoboCast.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the RoboCast with myself, Sam Elliott64, Steve the American Killjoy, and World of Woodrow, and we are here to discuss the very first episode of what we thought was going to be BattleBots Bounty Hunters Season 2. It is in fact BattleBots Champions. Guys, it's been a while. We've been waiting a long time for this, I think.
Shaking off the rust, everything's fine, no more dustiness, we're good, everything's great.
It's definitely the first take as well. That's the best thing
Yeah.
about this.
See, now you just ruined the immersion.
But Calvin's lit up. It's all good. Speaking of Calvin, Calvin Iba from Mad Catter and Lynx. Welcome for the first time to come and talk some fighting robots. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Well, I suppose we'll start off with the robot itself because this season has been a little bit truncated, not truncated, but like it's been split across the last year or so, which is an awfully long time to keep things under wraps. Someone actually asked us, I think it was one of the YouTube comments actually asked us, how difficult was it to keep all this quiet for a year? Because as you kind of alluded to us off screen, this was the best fights of the season for everyone. Mm-hmm. So how difficult was it to kind of keep quiet and be like, okay, something amazing is coming, but I can't really discuss it yet?
Yeah, it was pretty hard because you guys saw this episode, and I think by far these include not just the best fight, but the best 5 fights of the whole season, if not all of BattleBots. Mm-hmm. And trying to keep that under wraps is pretty hard because it's oh man, you saw us go out and the top 32. Mm-hmm. And the season is kind of, a little. Was that
frustrating? Yeah, because that's 2 years in the top 32 now. Where it's kind of the potential was clearly there. Like you've done so well in the regular season, then it just couldn't quite take that next step. Was that frustrating at all?
It was a rough draw, as I recall, as well against Black Dragon.
Yeah, I feel like we would have won, but we just didn't have enough combat experience to know that if our arm is forced down, it'll actually lift up our front wheels, and then we're only driving on the back 2 wheels, and we have 2 drive motors per wheel in the front and only 1 drive motor per wheel in the back. So we're severely cut in drive power. So if we just lifted the arm a little bit higher, then we would have been just fine for the fight. I think we could have pulled out the win, but we just didn't know that, right? We weren't aware, and it's so hard to tell what's going on during the fight. None of us caught it until we watched it afterwards, and we actually threw the robot in the test box afterwards and forced the arm down again, and it's well, yep, it drives like crap.
Oh wow. It's always those small things, right? You don't
but just trying to tell people just wait for the for the tournament champions or whatever it's called. It gets so much better.
And the worst part about it is you've been in events since BattleBots wrapped, so it's anybody you talk to, it's well, I guess keep this under wraps, or you accidentally oh, don't tell anybody, don't let this leak out. So I can't imagine the nightmare. But that's TV, and that's the thing. You sign NDAs for a reason, so you guys can save this beautiful episode that we got today, or yesterday that we're talking about today.
You mentioned other events, obviously, for those that aren't familiar with, because obviously BattleBots focuses on the captains. Obviously, you have a very eccentric and wonderful team captain in Martin Mason, but obviously, for those that don't know who you are and are familiar with Norwalk Havoc, you are the current. You won overall last year, didn't you, with Lynx? And obviously, you've won a few golden dumpsters in between time. And of course, I think my personal favourite Beetleweight in the US at the moment, mixtape as well as yours as well. Yes. I have to ask, because it's just so wonderful to see all of this fire come straight out. It's just it's such a small scale. It's obscene to me.
The amount of fire is it's not crazy or anything different than what we put on like a heavyweight as a flame module, right? It's about 4 feet of fire, big, nice plume.
But the robots are small.
But when you,
That's a much smaller box.
4 feet of fire is definitely a large distance.
When the arena itself is 4 feet, that's it's quite a lot.
The normal Havoc arena is I think 10 feet square. But yeah, when you cover most of it in fire, it works pretty well.
Definitely get to the builders' heads for sure, the drivers' heads.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, even though there was an instance where you melted a robot entirely, which was awesome.
It's
when you shrink it down to the 3-pound scale, it really looks impressive. And at the 3-pound scale, a lot of the robots are 3D printed or made out of plastic, so they get all melty and mushy, and it's
wonderful.
It's, way more effective, obviously, against plastic robots versus steel robots.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we mentioned Lynx as well.
Mm-hmm.
The similarities between Lynx and Mad Catter are obviously they're both 4-wheel drive vertical spinners. Does that help you in terms of driving practice for the heavyweight when you do get to drive it? Because there's obviously elements you can carry over. There are completely different worlds in terms of how they drive, how they behave, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the reasons why I got picked to be the driver for Mad Catter is because I have experience driving a 4-wheel drive vertical spinner. But yeah, driving them is pretty different, right? Like Mad Catter doesn't gyro like nearly as much as Lynx does. Lynx is pretty uncontrollable in that matter. The drive power on Lynx is immensely more powerful than the drive on Mad Catter, just because of how things scale.
And also the fact that you're able to dig into the ground, especially when it comes to
with the sort of
Ford Havoc.
Almost the cleated wheels is a very clever idea. It's almost like a big cage, isn't it, that rolls?
Yeah, so the whole idea behind the cleated wheels was to try to get Lynx driving like Lynx does in SoCal, where we have steel floors and I use magnets. Lynx probably has at least 10 pounds of magnetic downforce, maybe 20. It's hard to tell. But it just goes and it turns and it's just a dream to drive. So putting those cleated wheels on Lynx to get at least somewhat close to the performance I'm used to at Norwalk Havoc was a really nice change. We're trying to get Mad Catter to that same level too. For next season, we're adding huge drive motors. So we use 3 gigantic inrunners for the weapon, and we're going to be using 4 of them for the drive this year. So 1 per wheel, and I designed some gearboxes that will reduce the RPM down to the speed that we need. And we've tested that in Houston. So I'm really looking forward to next season.
As are we.
As are we, yeah.
Yeah, we made huge leaps with the drive for 2021 compared to 2020. And I think we'll have another huge leap this year.
I was going to say, like, the evolution of Mad Catter over certainly the last couple of seasons has been, like, ridiculous. Like, when we first saw it was it 19? Was it? And
it was 19.
With the hammer and what have you. Like, it was, very serviceable. It was a solid machine, but like we never really expected you to go unbeaten in 20.
Solid, but there was that time when the cat became a Kit Kat.
It did.
Yeah.
But like the evolution of Mad Catter over the last couple of seasons has been very it's been widely noted, and I think it's just so wonderful. It's great.
It was strange looking back and seeing the hammer on Mad Catter because I'd completely forgotten it used to be there.
It was there last season. It was there in 2020, wasn't it?
Interchangeable.
Yeah.
And I think it was used in one fight against Malice.
Yeah.
Malice did the thing.
And we didn't fire the hammer.
It produced the best.
You didn't have to.
It produced the best reaction to a victory I think I've ever seen, with all of you just like laughing. And it was just like the nods. It was so good. Oh dearie me. Right. Should we talk about some fights from this episode? I feel like we should do. I know Jeff.
There's a good amount to go over, and this particular bracket is just full of spectacular fights. It's spectacle. The whole thing is just full of spectacle. There's maybe 1 or 2 fights that, but let's just jump right into the first one.
Yeah, this is what I love about these last fights of the season is everyone has their robot tuned up, so it's working great, right? We've all had time to do some trial and error and fix things that broke in previous fights, and we're not afraid to let the robot go.
I was saying, it's your last fight
because it's like the last fight of the season.
Exactly.
Right. The less we have to pack up, the better.
Or just do what the Gamatron team.
Absolutely. Right. Well, Jevon's very confused at this point. Let's talk about fight number 1 then, which was Duck versus Hypershock. First thing I want to say is it's a shame to see Duck's final fight go the way it did, but
it didn't die.
It didn't die. It went full 3 minutes, and credit to them, they've had this is their 4th vertical spinner of the season.
Jesus. There are several robots in this set of fights that we're about to see in BattleBots Champions. Obviously, supporters have seen the matchups, and there's some of them you see that you think, God, I feel sorry for them, because they've had a very similar trend throughout of the type of robot they've faced, and it's not always the most ideal for them.
Yeah, I feel like depending on which setup you show in your pictures and which robots you have a great track record with, the producers will put you against the opposite this year.
Yeah.
So like Kraken, they got I think all horizontals because they're
same with Scorpios.
They
I
did
think,
great
right?
against Witch Doctor.
Scorpios always gets horizontals because it can.
You can tank
I think Scorpios gets horizontals because it can take them and dishes out the hits quite well.
And then but Duck is great against horizontals because it's a brick and it sends the horizontals flying, and they have a huge big plow set up that they never got to use for horizontals. I mean, we had our beautiful big wraparound wedge that we designed so we can take on Tombstone again, and we never got to face a horizontal this season, so hopefully that they mix it up some more.
It's intact for next season.
True.
Right?
It's not come out, has it, this year?
No, it's just in the pictures.
I've only just realised.
And just in the pictures.
Maybe it was never there. Like
I mean, that's why we
like the Hydrovert.
That's why we had to push to get in the Gigabyte finals or the Beetleweight tournament. So we want to break out the wedge. But
makes sense. I will say I did appreciate the asymmetric nature of Duck's setup on this as well. Like the one fork, it was very it smacked of Beetleweight in the UK scene. Like with a lance on the one side, and I like the idea they went for. Didn't quite work out, but I think they came up against as we'll get to, some very stiff opposition in Hypershock. And that there was that one hit where it launched it. I think
it just goes straight up and comes straight back down.
It was perfect. It's just it stayed parallel to the floor the whole time.
It did feel like someone throwing a pizza up in the air and catching it again.
Yep. But for sure. I mean, we could talk about how just dogged and determined Hypershock was in this fight, but really it comes down to Team Black and Blue and their build quality for this robot. This Duck machine, even if it wasn't as effective as it was in previous seasons, and maybe the weapon didn't work exactly how it was supposed to, or they didn't get a chance to use it because it just got chipped off, where instead of working in a fight, it just, and that's the end of it. Props for everybody. But in any case, it shows that it literally is going to take like a natural disaster to kill this robot. And
it's gone 6 minutes this season with Hypershock and Witch Doctor.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's incredible achievement, really, when you consider, and it broke both of their weapons. I mean, Hypershock certainly wasn't spinning happily at the end.
No.
Yeah, I think a motor mount broke in Hypershock, so they're only running on one weapon motor instead of two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not enough torque.
I think the same thing happened with Witch Doctor. That's quite a funny coincidence as well, then. Okay. Well, I mean,
welcome to Miami.
Literally. They share a lot of
and you gotta give props to Duck as well for losing its wheel almost exactly as the toy does. So great marketing.
And again, I think this was the first time that Hannah has driven Duck as well. So credit to her for keeping it aggressive and keeping.
She did a phenomenal job.
Yeah. Good as you could do against this speedy RC car.
Well, considering Duck has struggled with drive issues throughout the season and hasn't been playing ball as well. It was credit to her. She did a really good job. Really good job.
just wasn't meant to be.
Not this year, no.
Hypershock, as we'll see in fights that come up, fights plural, was on some kind of juice in this episode.
We'll have to double check in a minute, won't we? Let's move on to fight number 2, which saw SMEEEEEEEE and Valkyrie. Also, SMEE's final fight, as we found out recently, and this was a much better showing than what it was against Gigabyte. I think, Calvin, I'm sure you'll be able to tell us, or possibly if Joe put some more rubber on those wheels, because it seemed to drive so much easier than it did against Gigabyte. There was a lot more traction. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he did with the wheels. I assume they were the same, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, the counterbalancing was the one problem that they had in the Gigabyte fight, because it kept wheeling forward, where it was on those front 2 wheels on those satellite drive pods. And then from there, it just was just a grind fest with Gigabyte. But in this fight, I noticed that now there's a space underneath that plate, so Valkyrie's disc just sneaks right underneath it. So it's just grinding against the bottom of this AR plate, and then after that, it's just a matter of time, either before the clock runs out or Valkyrie finally gets a chance to get behind SMEE, because that's always the thing when it comes to fighting SMEE, is getting behind it. It just doesn't. It's just so unruly, and that was one thing that it showed really well in the Beetle scene, because the boxes were smaller and it was much harder to get around it. But here, Valkyrie gets a chance around the side, and once it clips one of the side pods and gets behind it, it starts doing some serious damage. It's kind of to the point where, it's a matter of time. There's one hit in this fight where Valkyrie hits one of the pods and puts a really serious bend in this AR plate, which it's AR. It's not supposed to bend like that and stay like plastic. Like it's plastic deformation of a really hard sheet of metal. It's just an insane what goes on in the box. But I'm sad to see SMEE go. It's a cool concept, but it just didn't. It doesn't seem to have scaled up to the heavyweight.
Doesn't quite scale up.
Yeah, I wish the drive power could have scaled a little better from the Beetleweight, because that's what really makes me work really well. Is like even if you do get behind him in a Beetleweight fight, he just whips right back around and you're all of a sudden in front of him again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's back at it straight away. I think another thing as well, like in this fight, like Joe clearly was enjoying himself. Like it was really nice to see, because he's had 2 pretty horrible fights at this point. Deep 6, bit of a non-starter really, wasn't it? When he got stuck in the kill stores, and then didn't get a 3rd fight, and then had that really difficult fight with Gigabyte. So it was nice to see a big smile on his face, and I think he was enjoying giving Valkyrie a hard time. I think that was pretty evident. Valkyrie itself took its time.
Yeah, death by 1,000 paper cuts this fight. Fred took his time, was racking up points as time went on. You showing shiny sparks, making it look good for the judges, and then what happened to those pods.
I think he did a great job.
Yeah, definitely. Towards the end, there was the panning shot from the corner of the arena. You can kind of see just the amount of debris and stuff that had been taken off of SMEE, and at that point you're like, oh, it's actually done quite a lot actually.
Yeah.
And there's the highlight from behind SMEE where you can kind of just see the whole pod just get pulled apart. It's just very efficient, and Valkyrie's had a tough season as well. They've had some less than favorable fights when they've been defeated, and obviously they had the 2 kind of weaker opponents in pardon my French, in Triple Crown. So it's kind of been hard to judge where they've been, but this was a solid win for them.
Yeah, they had a weird season too.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay, I think I've got the next 2 in the wrong order. We'll do it in the order that I've done it. And fight number 3. Oh no, I did it in the right order.
No, it is fine. Have more confidence in yourself, sir.
I know. This was the next fight.
The best part about this is that the audio is going to be like, "What's he talking about?"
Well, yeah. So Triple Crown versus Mad Catter. When I saw this draw, and I think Calvin, we spoke a little bit about this beforehand. I also, hello, my dog's here. I kind of looked at it and thought, I can't believe the producers gave Triple Crown another horrible matchup, because Valkyrie's such a heavy hitter.
And it's rude, isn't it?
It is. I mean, how did you feel about the fight, Calvin? Because obviously you've got to fight it,
Yeah, I mean, apparently Todd said that he wanted to, fight the heavy hitters, So I think it's good that they didn't give him another horizontal or another undercutter at least.
Yeah, honestly,
give him a vert to test out his stuff with. Yeah, it's just it's pretty big disappointment that his connection broke, and because he drove out to the square fine, right? Everything was working great, and then once the lights started, then he just kind of
Steve sent us a link to the video.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's something he's run. It's not like it's new technology he's run. It's something he's run before, and it had to. I guess it has to be interference from all the lights and stuff.
Yeah, there's tons of cameras, and audience has all their phones. But I think he said he's running on a different frequency than like the normal 2.4 gigahertz, which usually has all the problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very strange. Yeah, we really.
Although a crowded frequency, it it might be more reliable. But that's the thing. You don't know unless you go to BattleBots. You can't test anywhere else. You can't set up a BattleBots with all its AV stuff and lights and people.
Get thousands of people just to stand around it as well.
Yeah. First of all, no one's got the money or the time for that.
Yeah.
Or the patience.
No, absolutely not.
So that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But he had some cool attachments. He had a little bumper thing that was designed to, stop a vertical spinner. Not sure if that really worked or not, or if
I was going to say
because we kind of
I don't know how well that would have worked.
The back, we kind of rammed him into the screws. So I'm not sure if that was what stopped the robot or his, really cool linkage thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to box rush him just because our weapon wouldn't be fully spun up. So then we get more than one hit,
sort of thing. Yeah,
you get a little light hit and some excitement at the start before we get fully spun up. But after that we just kind of lift him up with the arm, and I think we went through a wheel guard
fight as well.
Tried not to completely destroy him because he wasn't moving.
Yeah, of course. Did you have a flamethrower on for that fight as well? Because is that just a lighter weapon bar attachment sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we had extra weight, so we just threw one of those on. We really wanted to run those in the saw blaze fight because they'd be very exposed, and we get good canister punctures, which always ends up good fireballs that don't really do any damage to us. But the scales, once we had two scales there, one scale was a little off, and the other scale was pretty accurate. So when we were measuring on the different scales, we're like, oh no, we had, we're overweight. We got to take a bunch of stuff off. So, the flamethrowers were the first thing to go. Because we really wanted to run the 12-pound mini bot, basically four stop, but we called it.
A Gassy Cat. Yeah, that is true. Gassy Cat was not in this fight. Which was odd. You guys are just kind of joined at the hip. It's interesting to see it going without it. But it's a shame. It's a shame that we didn't get to see this Triple Crown robot drive around again. Because I will say, in its first fight, it drives so buttery smooth.
Yeah, it is so cool.
And Swerve Drive, I really want to see what the next iterations for these are in robots, because it has potential.
We saw one at Norwalk Havoc, didn't we? We saw Aaron Hill bring
Aaron
one.
Hills.
Very good. Yeah, hopefully we see Todd come back again. I'd like to think we will do, because he seems to have been bitten by the bug again, but we'll see.
I know that from the video that he posted on his channel that he wasn't accepted back, unfortunately, with with Triple Crown. So it doesn't mean he won't come back.
Triple Crown has done what it set out to do, which was advertise that locomotion for other things, and there are now bits of Triple Crown in NASA projects, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
See, it did get picked up, not just by the Army or by anybody. NASA got it. So
there you go. And obviously Mad Catter going through. I think that fight was kind of meant to be. I think was in full for supporters, or it was meant to be for supporters. Then BattleBots just posted it to their regular.
I'm not
page.
even sure.
It was so strange. I think it was meant to be.
I believe they did actually post it to supporters, because I was looking at the settings on it, and it was sent out to specific people.
Oh right, strange.
Who knows? Everybody wins.
Who knows? Yeah, exactly. Everybody wins. Fight number 4. Claw Viper versus Defender. We finally saw the 4-bar grabber, and it didn't quite have enough like arc, if you like. It didn't quite have enough
Yeah,
range to kind of grab defender, which is a shame.
yeah, it'd be
But
really
it's a
good
fight.
against the low profile robots. but
Yeah,
yeah,
the
defenders are a
chassis on
little
defender.
taller.
Yeah,
And this was brilliant. This was like what Retrograde versus Defender should have been. It was like
yeah.
two grabby lifty robots doing what they set out to do. Defender got a full. I think pretty much got a
Yeah,
full.
defender was
suplex
doing
in there.
great at the start.
It was so
Yeah,
They
good.
got some really good lifts, and yeah, they're doing awesome.
It was
yeah.
so
They won
good
the
to
they
see.
won the ground game. They had it all for the first minute, and then things change around a minute in,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
defender gets dug into the railing near the red square, right where the red square is, and in a very aggressive motion, Claw Viper frees them, and then from there on out, defenders, one, not driving right, and two, Claw Viper is all over them.
There's a
and then
reason
the
for it
wheel-
not driving right.
The wheel came off.
The wheel fell off. The wheel was
The wheel
loose.
fell off.
Yeah, well, before that, I think the gearbox stripped or something because
Oh, really?
yeah, it wasn't spitting.
Okay. Well, it's Claw Viper also really frustrated me at this fight, and I know
Why?
I'll tell you why. So we've all raved about how cool it is when it's in full motion. It's so fast and it's incredible to watch. It's very, very, very exciting in the arena. But he kept overshooting, and it was really bothering me. Like, it's almost
That's the
too
Claw
much.
Viper way.
I know, but it's almost too. It's like dial it down to maybe 90%, and
What
then
they, what they really need is the Mad Catter driving school area to go and practice in. I think.
No, I think if I drove Call Viper, I'd do even worse.
Yeah.
Um,
Playing off of that. Yeah.
It's like
playing- Go ahead.
I mean, driving heavyweights is like driving a boat, right? You turn,
Right.
and then a few seconds later, then it turns.
the thing does
Right?
the
And
thing.
then if you want to stop, it's like, well, I'm just gonna
keep
it's,
going.
It's still going. So it's really tricky to really stay on an opponent and really aim, and driving heavyweights is a lot different than your 12 pounds or your 30-pound robots that Kevin is used to driving.
Yeah, the response is different for sure. And playing off of what was said before, where like he's overshooting. There's definite problems with overshooting, especially when you run into the walls and continue to stub your little toes on the walls.
Kept
and
bending.
then
Yeah.
This
it
is the
bends them
the
up, and
biggest
then
issue
there
is
goes
the
your
Claw
ground
Viper.
clearance.
Claw Viper's weapon just bends and
Mhm.
stays bent for the fight, and sometimes for longer than that, depending on what spares they brought and everything.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this weapon system, and I don't think I would change it for metal because it works well made of HDP or UHMW as it probably
Mhm.
is.
Could be a weight thing too.
Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely something to consider because it keeps bending.
Mhm.
What do you do about that? Does it work as well when it's bent? No, is the simple answer.
Yeah, I think if he had some hinge, small hinge wedgelet things on the front of the lifter, that would really help. If
Mhm.
those red tips were hinged,
Mhm.
I think that would have helped a little.
Yeah, because it looks like
That just adds complexity, and it's one more thing to break off. And
right.
It depends what you value. Do you value the ability to have it repairable after the fight is a thing as well? Like if it gets sheared or snapped off, then that's a different matter than having something bent. You can just kind of bend it back into place if you
right.
with a lot of persuasion.
And we also got to see the 4-bar claw, which is cool.
We did.
Yes, this is
Yeah.
true, even though it didn't work perfectly because
No, as you were saying earlier,
big.
the gap. So I built a Lego version of the 4-bar claw, having seen Claw Viper in a remote control Lego system. And the first issue I ran into was the amount of space to try and grab a hold of things. The range of motion was not big enough. So I had to then alter that. And yeah, just their range of motion on the 4-bar claw section just wasn't quite enough. They could almost do with it being sat either a little bit higher up, so angle it up a little bit, or slightly further back so that it has a good range to get up and over to grab a hold. But it was good to see it working.
Not bad for a first attempt, but it was there was clearly the first time this weapon had been tried in this style, so room for improvement. But it was a solid effort, and a win for Claw Viper in the end, which great stuff.
That was a great fight.
Really good fun fight.
Nothing to take away from them at all. It was a really solid fight, and it was nice to see this thing that had been teased for so long. I know he's trying to save it for a fight where it wouldn't get ripped off, because this is a fight where he wasn't finally fighting something with kinetic, So it was nice, But moving on, and unfortunately for Mr. Vasquez, back to the drawing board, possibly to either improve this design, or
I think the best thing that Defender can do is uncomplicate it.
There is a
How
lot
so?
going on, isn't there?
There is a lot going on. 6 different systems going on, if memory serves. They just need to pick the best ones, basically. So it's like claw, lift, and drive. If that's it, it's it. But there's a hell of a lot going on.
It's a lot to play with at once when you're at the box and your brain shuts off and you're just trying to focus on one thing. So okay, yeah, I can see that.
A solid first season though for Defender.
Definitely. Sure.
Yeah, made the play-ins. So
this is true.
There you go. Our first semi-final now, Jevon.
I'd like to talk about this fight.
Jevon, as our resident Hypershock fanboy, take it away.
I love this fight.
Who didn't?
Jesus Christ.
It is also a rematch as well. I should point out from...
Oh, yeah.
This is the only
amazing
fight that's a rematch. Every other fight, I think, had never happened before. That's one thing also I liked about this episode.
It's funny.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, because obviously I knew they fought before, I remembered, oh yeah, that was the fight where Hypershock went across the box in like 2 seconds. I wonder if he's going to do it again. And he just did it again straight away.
He did. Straight in.
So good.
Got them up on their hind legs and then went in and attacked. And I think just hit the top of the weapon mount or something like that. But
I think it's sheared.
And that weapon came straight off.
Yeah, Valkyrie has like
and continue to spin.
A 2-inch, I believe, or maybe even larger, like 340, like hardened steel shaft. It's pretty unbreakable, and it's
clearly not
gigantic. And it is really impressive because I mean we've never seen that happen to Valkyrie ever before.
That is definitely a new feature for Valkyrie. And it ends up spinning like a top. And not only does the blade come off, Will has a sick fantasy of hitting things that are moving. And he hits the bar into the ceiling, and I think a part of a light came down or something. It wasn't a party streamer.
I've heard from a few sources that production weren't very happy with that either.
I wouldn't think so. It looked really good on TV though.
It looked amazing on TV. Like the fact that it was spinning in the way that it was, and then Will saw it and thought, "No, I can't have this." It hits it and it just stops dead afterwards. You're
well, it's Valkyrie's new mini bot. That's the thing. You got to get rid of that too. That's the thing. You got to kill more than 50% of the robot.
Oh my! And afterwards, just the sheer brutality of Hypershock, just like
no mercy.
Honestly, I've never seen Valkyrie savage the way that it was before. It was unbelievable. Just the immediate connection of smacking it, and then it was outrageous.
It was incredible. I will say, I have written in my notes just devastation ensues. I forgot I wrote that. But yeah, that one hit at the beginning, this fight was over so fast because really the 2 big hits that ruined the whole fight for Valkyrie is that one hit. Actually, no, it's 3. One hit gets it up, it gyros like it does, and then you have that one hit on the top, which I don't know if it did anything internally damage, but that wasn't the one that was going to kill it. Then the weapon goes,
it puts them back down, and then he got, because that's the hit that knocked it straight up into the Valkyrie driver's booth, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third one, which I think the Valkyrie team will remember for years to come.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's seared into memory. And then at the end of the fight where it's on the screws and hopefully trying to escape, trying to cling to the railing saying, I'm done, if somebody's just like a boxer just wailing on him against the ropes, like he's done. The ref's got to come in. We don't have refs and BattleBots that are in the box, unfortunately. And then it comes back down one more time and then just rips the front UHMW off. And
that
done.
Front protective package that's there to ablate the arm, ablate the hits. And it definitely does.
Yeah.
And then it did once. And that was it.
I was really impressed of how Valkyrie's drive kept working, like even after all those hits. Which
is a problem they've had for a long time as well.
The wheels still spin.
This is the thing: is all of the external things broke, including the bits that were meant to break. So that front armor package that came ripped off was meant to be there to be ripped off and take the hits. The weapon, yes, it's not meant to come off, but that coming off didn't stop them from keep working, and that's pretty good. Pretty good going from Valkyrie.
Yeah,
very impressive.
That Hypershock was mad.
Well, I have to say, I have to ask, Calvin, you were obviously, I'm sure, had one eye on this fight. What was your kind of reaction seeing this? Were you thinking, oh no, what have I done?
I mean, I know verts have a huge advantage over horizontals.
The ground is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Just you have normal force. It's great.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what I was thinking after this fight, but I was just very excited to fight Hypershock because we're both very two pretty aggressive drivers, and Mad Catter was really fast that season, and so is Hypershock is obviously way up
and it was
there.
going to be your first meeting. I know that fight's coming up that we'll talk about, but like it'd be the first time you guys have actually crossed paths. Yeah,
and I didn't think it could get much better than the Claw Viper fight, right? Because Mad Catter and Claw Viper are two incredibly fast robots, and I guess we haven't even got to that yet.
Oh, in fact, why don't we just
that's a great segue. What a great segue.
The family tree of fights.
Go ahead, Calvin.
Yeah, so I was super stoked for this fight because two super fast robots. I know they couldn't really hurt us, but we don't do great on our head either.
Who does?
So
break dancers.
Yeah, I knew this would be a super fast-paced fight, and I was super excited. And we're good friends with Kevin. He's from the Seattle area. We have our main robot designer, Emmanuel, shares a shop with Kevin. So
it's the family tree. It's everybody's connected.
Not again.
Yeah,
everything's connected to Warhawk.
Yeah, so we're really excited for this fight.
I have to say that first hit was just the one where it just gets like sent way over the shelf onto the other side of the shelf. It was just so good.
Hunted.
Oh
yeah,
my
that was so
goodness!
Cool.
Like just seeing it
probably
fly,
10 feet in the air.
It's crazy. And then you just don't even give him a chance to recover. Just rip all the magnets off the bottom. No, again, didn't give him a chance. It was surgical, absolutely surgical.
Yeah. There were a couple of times I missed, but
you hit him enough times to.
Oh no, I missed. What a shame.
There's the one like where I take a huge run up from one corner of the arena to the other.
It just bumped the wall.
Completely missed.
The artist critical of his work.
It's hard lining it up, but
I bet.
It's
hard to line
the
something
Beetleweights,
up that's also moving.
You can see everything all in
in
your vision, right? In your field of vision. But with the BattleBox, you're like standing like right up against the glass, and you have to physically move your head to see all of it. So like doing a box rush and doing big run-ups like that is a little challenging.
Yeah,
so you can't keep both robots in your view at the same time.
Especially with the uneven floor as well. Like it's you got the kill source to avoid. There's obviously if you just hit a divot in the floor a certain way, and you can kind of
luckily our websites are terrible. And they don't get under anything, so
it's not true. I saw you get under Claw Viper. That's not true. Oh dear me! It was. Yeah, go on, Steve. You were going to say something.
Oh, me?
You were going to say something.
Oh yeah, I was. Well, I don't. I was going to make a joke on like the fact that like somebody on the team could be taking control of like imagine if you like stood on like a lazy Susan and then somebody would like rotate you to like see all the fights, so you wouldn't have to turn your. I don't know. I was gonna leave that in my head, Sam, because it was terrible, but I said it anyway.
No, it's out there now. It's an idea for next season.
The new segment of the podcast.
I don't know. Steve's
this season I
weird
stood on a
inventions
stool.
that should never happen.
I was gonna say
Steve's brain.
Go on, Calvin. Sorry.
So this season I actually stood on a stool so I can get a little higher.
I noticed that.
So I wasn't, I didn't have to use my depth perception as much as I could look down and see things.
Did you find that it helped?
I don't know. It's only like a 1 foot high stool. I don't know how much it really helps.
Did you bring your own stool, or did they have one sort of built into the arena? Because you'd think with teams such as Perfect Phoenix, where they've got sort of younger drivers who can't see quite as well over the top, you'd think they might then start to think about building something into the area. Or
Ray's not going to put him on piggyback and have him drive his robot. It would be.
This was my big question after the episode.
But like, if you see like RC car races, right?
Yeah,
they all stand up high on a driver's stand.
Yeah.
And
same
it really
classic
helps.
Robot Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
That's always the advantages of the cherry pickers, as opposed to being at the same level as the arena.
Not the cherry pickers. Everyone
Wow.
felt sick on the cherry pickers.
That's true. I have read about that.
Oh dear me. We've got off topic a little bit.
I will just. I wanted
mostly
to bring up one
because-
more thing about Claw Viper,
Mhm.
because I really like the strategy of trying to use the metal claw to try and snag belts. We'd seen it work really quite nicely with Shatter against Blacksmith early this season. Obviously, these are two very different robots, two different styles, but it was a solid strategy that could have worked had had it gone a different way.
Right. But unfortunately, today was not the day.
No. And yeah, just I think towards the end as well, the fact that you just kind of see all the belts kind of get spat out by Claw Viper, it wasn't very happy, was it, at the end? But
it was done. Enough BattleBots for me. I want to go home.
Yeah. I mean,
I really hope that Claw Viper comes back next year or this year, whenever it comes out. Who knows? But with something similar, I really like. There's a UK beetle called Luchador that more recently has used sort of two prongs either side, more Slammo-esque. But I think systems like that are working quite well these days in combat robots. And Claw Viper operates it in a similar way, but not the same, in bringing it all into the middle to be able to grab a hold of a point and throw it. And I don't know whether spreading out those arms and things to be more like Slammo would fit with what they're trying to go with Claw Viper, because I really do like what they're doing with Claw Viper, but I really want to see it back, basically.
Yeah. Calvin, you were trying to say something, I think.
Oh yeah, so we had this wraparound armor, right?
Right.
I think the one that they used in our fight was like 3/8 inch. It's huge. But yeah, it is all mangled after the fight. It's so cool.
Yeah. Did you get to keep it?
I believe we did somewhere.
Oh, okay.
It could be at the shop somewhere.
It's shed the snakeskin.
There you go.
There you go. Very good. Right, I think this is the fight that we all kind of really wanted to talk about, and I know this is the fight that when we started kind of preparing for this
one or the next one.
You said this was your fight too.
This one is explosive, and I love it.
It's honestly like.
What do you say?
I mean, it was two very, very fast and aggressive verts, just all out. It was there was no compromise from either team. And then just the shit. I've never seen a robot so broken as I have seen Mad Catter at the end of that fight. It was just unbelievable. Like it was just bits. It was just being ripped off every single hit. It was crazy.
Yeah, I didn't think it could get much better than the Claw Viper fight in like excitement, right? Because the Claw Viper fight was. I mean, if that was like a final fight or a main event fight, then we'd all be very happy. But yeah, this just took it to another level. I think everyone's getting faster, and it's just so much more action and so much more fun. Hypershock is on another level. Our silly wide wedget things don't get stuck in the kill slots, which is really nice, but they also don't get under anything. The reason why is because we try to do a bunch of testing at the makerspace, and if they're ground flat, then they just eat up the concrete and they just destroy the makerspace floor. So we leave a little radius on them, which obviously doesn't fly anymore. We can't do that anymore. So things will change for next year. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that really lost us this fight. But I was really impressed with how we could just keep going, despite how many pieces and stuff were torn off Mad Catter. This year we have all our armor and our wedgelets shock mounted, so there's big rubber isolators between everything. And in the slow-mo, you could really see like the side armor take a big hit and it just wiggle and bounce. But keep the wheels underneath like away from any harm, and it keeps the whole chassis isolated from those hits. So we were driving for a long time until the very, very end. I think like even like the second to last hit, we were still driving straight. We weren't even crab walking yet.
It was crazy,
which was crazy. So I was very happy with this fight. It's the last fight of our season, so I was very happy to see
go all out,
go away in a million pieces.
Yeah. It's the best bit of these
Yeah.
fights, I think, is seeing
Mhm.
that it's the end of the season. These robots aren't going to fight anymore unless they make it all the way through.
Right.
Absolutely trash them.
Yeah.
It was something great about Bounty Hunters last year, where Mad Catter was just ripping robots to pieces left, right, and center.
Mhm.
And it's the thing that I think in the main season, especially pre-tournament bracket,
People are very conscious of the
it's
fact
kind
of being careful.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like if this was early in the season, then I would have stopped moving. Yeah, like count us out. Like
Yeah.
we'll take the loss.
I'm done here. There's no more.
Yeah.
Nothing more to see here. But like,
save me from myself. I'll save myself for later.
I think one thing I wanted to ask as well was obviously there was a small fire for Mad Catter
Yes.
in this. Was that because after that point the weapon didn't seem as potent as it was? Was it weapon related?
Yeah. So exactly. So when we were upside down, Hypershock came in and hit us, and it ripped open the top, and it hit one of our weapon C controllers. So we have 3 weapon motors. So one of them was gone. Luckily, we still had 2. So yeah, the weapon was still working, but not not quite as well.
It was labored, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. And I think we had the small or one of the lighter weapons on for this fight, so it still should have spun out fine. But yeah, it is pretty spectacular seeing the fire and having it still work. And I love the slow-mo like of us like upside down near the shelf, and you see all the like the blue sparks and the black electronic like magic smoke coming out, and yeah, it's just spectacular.
And poor little Gassy Cat as well.
Absolutely yeeted.
Yeah, that thing was trashed.
I think another thing as well, like mentioning Gassy Cat, like the little stat board before, like, we see you, BattleBots. You
they've become self-aware. We've always sort of in private circles we've commented on those stat boards, going, where are they getting these numbers from? What are they based on? How do they know? And then this time they bring up number of
feline-based
mini-bots
mini-bots
named after flatulent felines.
Yeah,
I'm like, they know what they're doing.
I think Gassy Cat made some awesome photos. I'm not sure if you've seen the ones that like BattleBots posted on Twitter or something. But yeah, I was going to say about the streak of fire going through the picture, and Hypershock is like pushing us.
Scroll back on the BattleBots Twitter. Team Hypershock did a takeover the other day, and they posted some photos, including the outcome of the damage, which is really.
I'll probably make an Instagram post.
It's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal. But I mean, what a spectacular. I mean, I'd have been happy with this as the final. Screw the Gigabyte fight. This would have been absolutely fine.
No, don't screw the Gigabyte fight. There's still
we'll get to it in a minute. But I know. Yeah, what an amazing
after this fight, you should have. I wish they pulled back one of the cameras and showed the arena, because there's just like black and blue pieces of steel everywhere. Yeah, it is all over the place.
Oh my God.
I will say before we move on, there are instances. I have the fight up next to me here. There are instances in this fight. There's this hope, like right when you have this fire on top of your robot, and I think there's a point where a whole bunch of black dust comes out, and it might have been a motor or speed control or whatever. There's a point where Hypershock's upside down. I'm like, oh no, it's P1 again.
Hypershock
they can't get back over. Thing. And you're like, oh. And then there's points in this fight where they're near the outside, the area where you can flip out. And there's a moment where
he hits the wall. He drove into the wall to self-right, and he almost.
Yes.
I was really concerned at that point.
Almost yeets himself over the wall, but wasn't.
It's not the place you want to be self-righting, Will.
No.
Don't do that to me.
So scary.
Yeah, it's hard because we want to get good hits on him, and it's a great easy target when he's upside down, but you just end up flipping him back over. Our weapon wasn't going in fast enough to actually rip a wheel off, unfortunately. And like the rest of the like body, like in between the wheels, there's so much air in that robot that you hit it and just nothing happens.
Yeah, and air's good armor.
Everything's very tight in the middle.
Yeah,
excellent.
Sun robot.
Yeah, this is the last time we're going to see Mad Catter for what was this season just gone. The last 18 months or so. Mm-hmm. What is going to take Mad Catter to the next level? Because you said you've been working on a few things.
Mm-hmm.
it's almost it's knocking on that door. It's knocking on that door. What is going to take it, through the door?
Yeah. So
that you can tell us, obviously.
We have been experimenting with magnets and new drive motors. Way more powerful drive motors. So let's see. Yeah, basically we'll. I think last year we increased the drive power by 50%. We went from four motors to 6 motors. Now we're going to 4 giant motors, which should give us another probably 50% bump. And so if we do end up riding on the arm and lifting our front wheels up, then we should have plenty of drive power to scoot us around just fine. And then also we've been experimenting with new wedgelets. They're like double hinge wedgelets that have a magnet in the middle, so it sucks itself down to the floor. And they're all spring loaded. So we're still experimenting with that. We got under Hydra at Remars, which was no small feat.
I was going to say, I forgot you were at Remars as well.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that fight was, it's 30 seconds long, so it wasn't a great test. But I think we can continue the development with those. They seem promising. And then other than that, we're trying to keep the robot mainly the same. We're playing around with some new speed controllers for the weapon. I think in the Claw Viper fight, you see us spinning backwards for the first part of the fight. That's because we run sensorless. So basically, the speed controller just has to kind of guess where everything is, where the magnets are relative to the rest of the motor, and sometimes it gets it wrong, and we're spinning backwards. So we have to get it to a complete stop and then start over, and right after that, you see it spin up like immediately to full power. So that was great, but could be better. So hopefully it should look the same or pretty similar as last year, but it'll have a host of improvements.
Evolution rather than revolution.
Yeah. Plus, we don't want to spend the money and remake everything. we're a very low budget team.
I was going to say this, like, by comparison to a lot of teams in BattleBots, like you guys are a team on a budget. Like it's not. I don't want to sound rude, but like it's not a high. You're not backed by a school. You're not backed by a big company. You guys do it off your own back out of the love for robot fighting, and it's incredibly effective. Does that
I think
give you
last year we only spent like $6,000 total. I mean, that was a big help. Senka Sen was a big help with that. But even then, like we've been reusing motors since Warhawk.
All comes back to Warhawk.
Motors.
Everything comes back to Warhawk. I've been telling you for years, Sam.
The speed controllers, they've been from the Warhawk era. Let's see. I think last year we used new weapon motors, which was a nice change. But even then, like, we're not using expensive, Castle Creations or like TP Power motors. We're using the $100 eBay special China motors, which are right up our alley. They're excellent. They're big, they're cheap, they're great.
And if they break, it doesn't matter because you spent $100 on them. It doesn't matter.
We don't really mind if. We don't. It doesn't hurt as much when we get a motor for testing and have to make sure it works first. So I think we've done really, really well considering our budget.
Absolutely, definitely. Well, there is one more fight to talk about, and ready for some fancy graphics. I've done some work on this, guys. It's gold. Yeah.
Whoa.
I'll tell you what. Look, this channel.
Sam, you've spent too much money on this gold.
I have.
Too much time in paint.
Yeah, we need a graphic designer. Are you available?
I'll slip you a DM later. Don't worry. Graphic design is my passion, but I think this fight was definitely Jevon's passion because, my God, again, I know this is kind of. You almost expect the fight to go the way that it did, but you don't expect it to go the way that it did as quick as it did. And I find it quite funny because Steve and Jevon, these were the two robots they picked to win last season, the 2021 season. It's quite funny they've ended up fighting one another, and the way Hypershock just bullies Gigabyte for that first sort of 20-30 seconds in the short corner, keeps it, nice and, compact in that corner, and it was just brutal from Hypershock at the start.
So the things I noticed from this fight were, I want to believe that poster of Gigabyte
that was so
made
good.
it into the audience.
It was so good.
But also Gigabyte took my advice from after they recorded it all, went back in time and took my advice by driving out of the corners when they'd been hit in there instead of staying in the corners. So well done, Gigabyte team, on not only listening to my advice, but also the feat of time travel.
It was
very impressive.
It was good that, because we did say this when they fought Uppercut, they span up while they were in the corner and then kind of struggled to back
and then
out
they got
as a result.
hit into the corner. Yeah. Whereas in this fight, they clearly learned from their mistakes, I think is the case. And they drove out, span up in the middle of the arena. I also noticed they had Matt Maxim on the team for this fight. A little whisper in the ear from Matt Maxim can go a long way. So, yeah. Apart from all that, the other issue to discuss, I suppose, is the issue with the transmitter, which swapped protocols.
Well, I was going to say, I'm fairly sure he's been asked since then, Will, and I don't think he knows to this day what happened. I think it's just didn't want to play on the night, I think, but it was...
Well, some sort of flaw with his controller, he was saying in the post-fight interview, whether it's the case or not, but the throttle became steering and steering became throttle for unknown reasons.
Maybe he switched profiles on the transmitter or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
When you
but he
set up
uses
that
pistol
transmitter
grip,
for mixing, you can set switches to turn on and off mixes. So he could have had a switch, set for that you don't really know about until you actually press it. And then you have no idea which switch you set it to. So good luck getting it back. I know there's different drive modes as well. So that could be another factor.
It was kind of drunkenly hobbling out of the corner. It was very funny, like him trying to get some.
He did well.
Yeah.
He did very, very well keeping it going in that weird moment of what the hell happened there.
And speaking of what the hell happened there, that final hit.
That final hit. I don't know why Gigabyte held back.
They must have just been confused. Maybe they thought they were going to get counted out or something, but...
Possibly. I wonder if it was a Witch Doctor Minotaur situation or what, but you'd hope not.
No.
I mean, if I were Gigabyte, I wouldn't drive back in the corner where Hypershock was.
This is true. To be fair, when Hypershock did eventually kind of come out of the corner, they did start to go back towards them again, decided to go for the wheels and the wedge and what have you.
It just ended up sort of up the wedge, on the spinner, through the air. And
I've gone through it frame by frame. It's amazing. So the first hit, you get that beautiful, load of sparks everywhere. It's brilliant hit. And it's not until it's just over the shelf that the shell actually starts coming off the self-righting pole. It's still spinning the self-righting pole. It hits its own body as it's going round and round and round. And then as soon as it hits the body, it then starts to slide off the self-righting pole. It launches itself at the BattleBots sign, shatters the BattleBots sign, and flings to the other side of the arena. Then the rest of the body's just... It's still got the self-righting pole intact in the middle. It's such a strange visual to have.
Yeah. All 8 bolts or whatever on the top, holding the shell to the pulley, and those all sheared. Incredible.
What an amazing fight, and what an amazing moment for it to end on. I mean, Steve, I
think Will's face said it all. With the very sort of...
He had no idea what he'd just done. Steve, obviously, I said you backed Gigabyte to win last season. How do you feel about its run overall, given everything?
It's tricky because the way that the box is set up now, with the way where the upper deck is, it's really a huge disadvantage for horizontals, no matter what horizontal you are. And for Gigabyte, especially when it's difficult to tell where the front is in real time, where you can see over top, the bar's pacing this way, but it's harder from the driver's bay. And I understand that. But with the year that it had before this one in 2020, I would have thought there would have been a continuing rise up. But this season was more of like a soul searching kind of one for Gigabyte, where yes, the way maybe the box orientation, like the way that the box was set up, wasn't to your advantage, but it just didn't pan out for them very well, did it? And it ended the same way that it did that it started when Gigabyte first showed up and fought Tombstone.
Losing its shell, yeah.
It's losing its shell, and we've kind of wrapped back around to that. Where leading up to this, we've seen how durable Gigabyte was, and how much it could really take hits, but it took a really special effort from Hypershock to shred it to pieces. And as I said before in the beginning of the episode, they're on some kind of juice and really need to get checked for something.
Yeah, PED has definitely entered the stream of Hypershock this episode.
The biggest difference between Gigabyte when it first came onto the BattleBot scene and Gigabyte now is that I think Gigabyte broke like it did because it was worn down over the season, whereas before it was, the parts that weren't reliable and whatever. I think this is a very different Gigabyte in that it didn't just take one hit and completely smash to bits. It took several before this, in this fight especially. I mean, it was thrown against the walls 4 or 5 times in this fight. I really, really like where Gigabyte's at the minute.
To be fair,
I think, as you said earlier, the box layout does not favor it at all at the moment.
So
and
I have more of a
changes.
pessimistic view than you, unfortunately. I love the robot, but it's tough now.
I mean, to be fair as well, they've lost 3 fights, they've won 2 this season. The fights they lost against were Uppercut, which, first fight jitters and, everything else. They got pinned in that corner.
That's a rough draw.
Exactly. They lost to Tantrum, who went on to win BattleBots itself, and then they've lost subsequently to Hypershock.
In a very close judge decision.
It was so close. It could have gone either way. And this fight as well with Hypershock, it's not a bad season by any stretch. Like, the 3 losses they've had were against, top opposition, and they're a threat for anyone. And
I'm so pleased that we're referring to Hypershock as top opposition.
Well, I was going to say,
as opposed to kind of making it.
Jevon, how smug do you feel? Because obviously it's
not smug. It's a relief, honestly.
Now it didn't win the season like you thought.
No,
but it could win this.
It could win this. It really could win this. It's been on an absolute mission, and I've always been in Hypershock's corner. I've always rooted for it and gone, yeah, I'm sure it's going to have a good one, hopefully maybe sometime soon. And this season it put on some really good fights, the best it's had in a long time, I think. But this tournament bracket is a whole different level for Hypershock. It's sort of getting back to 2016 Hypershock levels of good, where it's really just ruining robots left, right, and center. But even then, it's surpassing that because the technology has come along, and the capabilities of this robot have come along as well. It's just, it's a flabbergasting machine, and I'm loving it.
Just leave it alone for next season, Will. Don't touch it. Just don't.
He will. He's going to take it apart completely.
No.
There are a lot of things that he blew up at Remars, so I think.
He did say he wasn't going to unless he had to build a new one. And at that point, I said, "Yeah, who are you, and what have you done with the real Will Bass?"
Yeah.
I gotta say, I wouldn't have hated this to be. I mean, okay, we all love Rusty. I would have loved for this to be the rival set that came out. These 2 right here. We haven't had a shell spinner yet, really. I mean, technically, we kind of got one with the build your own bot, where it had like that 4 more. You can turn it into a shell spinner though if you're an art person, or you can 3D print something if you're good. But yeah, it's. This fight was weird. I know you guys probably already talked about it. I had a phone call. I'm also at work too, but I'm also on lunch. But that's a whole separate story. The deal with this, I know you probably talked about, is that his controller reboots itself, or he flicks the switch or something like that in the moment, to not panic and just know that, like, all right, my sticks are backwards, everything's fine. But that's one of those things where experience helps, and just like you cool off, you're ahead in the fight, you're ahead on points. Man, that another thing with that single disc spinner, and Pete talked about it leading up to the fight, where it's that sandwiched S7 between those 2 AR plates. It's really
interesting, isn't it?
It cuts as well as holding up.
Witch Doctor did quite well with a single tooth disc as well. And it can swap between the 2. It's almost as if they talk to each other and work on similar strategies.
Don't know what we're suggesting here, Jeff.
Don't want to start those rumors, but
it kind of brings us to the end of the episode itself. I feel like there are definitely some other things we've probably missed, and I'm sure the comments will let us know. But I think an important question I have to ask Calvin for yourself. Obviously, we've mentioned him already. Is it particularly pleasant and like kind of reassuring to have someone of such a big personality as Martin as the team captain, kind of let you guys just focus on the robot and make sure that it's running smoothly? Because I imagine it's quite nice to have the cameras all pointed at one person, then it's like, okay, not have to worry about that. Let's get the robot in fully running order.
Yeah, Martin does a great job with, distracting all the camera and production people, and all right, come talk to me, like let them work, because our team is great with we could put the whole robot together in no time, even without him. So yeah, it's great that we have someone that does all the PR and all the all the showy stuff, so we don't have to. We can concentrate on getting the robot ready for the next fight. And he's hilarious. So
we love him. He's
fantastic.
He's
I did think it
wonderful.
was nice, and I did notice they did actually give you a shout out in this week's episode
Yeah,
as well,
they did.
Calvin, and give you some credit as the
talented
immense driver. You
driver.
are.
The talented
Yes.
driver.
It's not just Matt anymore. But in any case, I will say, as we're wrapping things up here, there is if this is BattleBots Champions, there is one huge missing piece here, and we know who it is, and it's a special little blue and white robot that wrecked shop, and it's not here, and it hurts.
Swing like this. Looks
I know
like
it's
this.
another. Oh, it's
Pardon
another
my
4-wheel
French.
drive vert, but it's the 4-wheel drive vert on this side of the pond, man. It's a shame that we still haven't, that he still hasn't come back, and he's probably not going to come back for the next season. I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. We haven't heard anything, so we'll see.
Another thing it'd be remiss of us to not talk about before we let Calvin go is Beetleweights, because I think if there's an angry dog.
Wrangle that.
Beetleweights is your jam, Calvin. Yes. You've won Norwalk Havoc so many times. Like, what brings you the joy? Is it the winning and the competing, or is it the R&D process of creating these destroyer of world little robots? Because it's I've seen, we've all seen Norwalk Havoc, we've watched the streams, we watch it as regularly as we can do, and just whenever Lynx is in the arena, you just know something special is going to happen, and more often, and obviously Mixtape as well, is now getting to that point where you're like, oh my god, I've got a plastic robot, I'm just going to get melted by this giant flamethrower. What is it that brings you the joy?
I think it's just like pushing limits, the R&D. When I first built Lynx in, I think, 2018, then we had an arena where you could just throw anyone or throw the people out of the arena over a little wall. So it won its first event there, and then over time, I've seen improvement, or seen areas to improve. So I've made multiple revisions to improve that, and especially with Tommy Wong, he's another Southern California builder. He's probably he keeps getting second to me, but he keeps pushing me to make Lynx better and better. So he built Explosion, I think, which is a undercutter, but it's all like TPU and it's indestructible. And then so that was really challenging for Lynx for a while, and then so I made improvements so that it could take him out quicker and quicker, and then he built Droopy to beat Lynx. It hits right at the level where I don't want it to.
And it worked.
So yeah, it worked great. So yeah, I came. It was a lot of fun traveling with him to Norwalk Havoc. Because I think, let's see, 2 years ago, in the Norwalk Havoc finals, I beat Droopy once during like the main bracket, and then he beat me twice in the finals. So I ended up getting second to him finally. That was really cool. So I had to come back with a bunch of improvements, and then it's just been really fun trying to make it the ultimate robot that can beat everything and anything. So yeah, now I have, you know, a drivetrain that can probably push around a 12 pounder, no problem. And, you know, a weapon bar that doesn't break now. I had to take weight out somewhere. Yeah. So yeah, weight had to come out of the weapon. I made it thinner and, you know, made it break. But I think that's pretty sorted now. Yeah, my ground game has gotten better and better. Like on steel floors in SoCal, you can kind of do whatever you want with forks and get away with it.
And magnets.
But yeah, and magnets. Yeah, but on wood floors, then yeah, it doesn't drive nearly as well. Hence the, you know, the cleats or the
And we haven't had a thing that that makes wood bipolar.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then I designed new wedgelets so they wouldn't get stuck in the floor. So yeah, I think it's a pretty formidable robot now, and yeah, I'm glad I can just bring it back to Norwalk, you know, in April and get first place,
and just turn up and win, and then it can stay back on the shelf then for the next
and then I'll
8 months.
Bring it back for the finals and we'll see how it does. Kind of want to see how long it can go before it gets outclassed.
Well, that's the goal. That's the whole thing with this sport. There's always something new on the horizon. You want to see how long you can, you know, stay around the top of the field. You know, it's remarkable to see that, you know, like you started out with a robot that would chuck that, like, you know, like as you were said before early on, where you had a ring out zone and stuff like that, where you were able to take advantage of something like that, and now you have a true killing machine, you know, in the 3-pound class. You know, it's cool. And listening to you talk, it's like you do seem to really enjoy the R&D process of being able to like work out kinks in your machines and, you know, try to make them as unbreakable as possible.
What's also cool is that you know, adapting links to you know, various arenas, right? So it can't just be good on steel floors. It has to be good on wood floors. And
robot fights in ball pits coming soon.
So when we were building our new SoCal arena, we're like, all right, we got to get rid of this out of the arena zone because I keep winning.
Oh, what a problem.
So we made the wall taller, right? So it's, you know, harder to out of the arena, so everyone, and that didn't really help. So then we filled in the floor, so it's, you know, completely solid, and, you know, I can't throw anyone out of the arena anymore. So
I've never heard somebody humble brag so confidently. Like they had to change the room for me. Just messing with you.
I mean, you got to make sure the fights last a little longer, right?
Yeah, and that's true. What John said at the end of this. Yeah, that's with what John Maladnik said at the end of this fight. He's like, he didn't want to get stuck in the corner and then have no fight, like what happened with Uppercut, where that fight was just over, you know, and there was no chance. So you want something entertaining, especially since it's TV. And if you go to live events, there's a bunch of people, you know, they drove all the way down there. They're probably, you know, tired, or, you know, like it's just like this better be good, or I want my money back kind of thing. No, but yeah, no, and I appreciate people who want to not just win, but like, you know, just
win well,
put on a spectacle.
Yeah. So mixtape was a lot of fun just because, you know, let's go from Lynx, which is, you know, this hyper competitive robot, and make something very silly, which turns out to work pretty well. Sometimes. It doesn't do great against, like, you know, Eruption, which is
pretty brutal spinner,
pretty nasty robot.
But
that's been a lot of fun, and now I'm building a new robot that
spicy
is designed to beat Lynx.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. So
podcast exclusive, everyone. Podcast exclusive.
Yeah. So it has a big spoiler on the back. It'll be, you know, it'll have same drive motors as Lynx, but has some pretty cool tech in it that I think will bring it to the next level.
When are we likely to see it? Is it a this year kind of project, or is it a
so I'll bring it to September Norwalk.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to keep
I won't be bringing Lynx though.
That's right around the corner.
It is. Another thing I was going to ask, like, you know, obviously the US Beetle scene is obviously very big. We know we see Norwalk Havoc, you know, every couple of months.
It really has blown up.
It really has. But
over the past few.
The Beetle scene in the UK as well has also been pretty, you know, excessive in the last couple of years. You know, do you look at the machines over here and wonder, you know, what could be, sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's really cool to see, like, saw Loser come over and do really well. I I think the US Beetles are still far ahead of the UK Beetles.
Even with the weight disadvantage as well.
May,
yeah, even with the weight
then when you come
disadvantage,
over
I
in
think-
May, you guys have to fight and just, we'll hash it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay.
I'd like to come to the UK eventually and fight too. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I think it'd be an absolute
And
pleasure.
you
to
guys have a
you along.
steel floor, ring outs, pits.
Exactly. So many
some
different
really fast
options.
matches, maybe.
Calvin, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
I hope you
thanks
come
for
back on
having me.
again.
Yeah,
Of course.
Excellent. Well, with all that said, good luck, everyone. I am Sam Elliott 64.
I'm Steve the American Killjoy.
I am World of Woodrow.
And I'm Calvin Iba.
Oh, brilliant. Look at that. As smooth as you like. And we will see you next week for more BattleBots Champions. We'll see you then.